There are things I regret that I understand completely. Choices I made under pressure, with insufficient information, in states of fear or grief or exhaustion. Those regrets are real, but they have a certain texture of inevitability. I can trace the path and understand why I was the person who made that mistake at that time. And then there are the other kind. The kind that keep me up. The ones where I had every advantage, I was calm, I was informed, I had time, and I still got it wrong. Not wrong in a complicated way. Wrong in a way that I can still see, clearly and specifically, even now. The moment I regret most happened in a hospital waiting room. My college roommate's name was Petra. We'd been close for 8 years, the kind of close that survives graduation and geography and different life chapters. She had been diagnosed with lupus 3 years earlier and had navigated it mostly without drama, the way she navigated most things, with a kind of determined practicality that I'd always admired. She wasn't the person who talked about her illness extensively. She lived around it. She called me on a Tuesday to tell me she'd been admitted for a flare. Nothing dire, she said. Probably just a few days. She used the word probably and I registered it, and then I let myself not register it, because the word probably in that context, from someone like Petra, meant something, and I chose not to hear it. I didn't visit that day. I had work things, legitimate things, the kind of things that feel significant in the moment and which I cannot now recall specifically. I told myself I'd go Thursday. Thursday became Friday. Friday I had a commitment I didn't cancel. I called on Saturday morning and got voicemail and left a message saying I'd come by in the afternoon. I didn't go Saturday afternoon. I went Sunday. And on Sunday she was worse. Not critically, the doctors were clear that the situation was being managed. But she was tired in a specific way I hadn't seen before. A tiredness that went past physical. I sat with her for 2 hours. We talked about small things, careful things. At one point she said something that I now think was an opening, a sentence that started with "I've been thinking lately about," and then she stopped and changed direction. And I let her change direction. I was uncomfortable with the weight of where the sentence might have been going, and I let my discomfort determine the conversation rather than following her into whatever she'd been about to say. She died 11 days later. Complications, the doctors said. Unexpected complications, from an illness that was full of unexpected complications. The conversation I didn't follow her into has lived with me since. I don't know what she was going to say. I will never know. It may have been something practical, instructions, arrangements, the kind of things people sometimes want to say out loud when they have a sense, however vague, that time might be shorter than expected. Or it may have been something more personal. Something she needed to say and needed someone to be present enough to receive. I wasn't present enough. That's the specific, irreducible regret. Not that I didn't visit earlier, though I also didn't, but that in the moment when she was reaching for something, I backed away from it. I prioritized my own comfort over her need. I've thought a lot about why I did that. I'm not trying to excuse it, but understanding it has been part of processing it. And what I keep coming back to is this: I was not brave enough for what the conversation might have been. Being brave enough would have required me to be fully in the room, to acknowledge the weight in the air, the tiredness in her face, the sentence she'd started. Being fully in the room would have meant admitting, to myself and to her, that the situation was serious in a way I'd been managing not to admit. I'd been managing not to admit it for 2 weeks. From the Tuesday of the phone call through the Sunday visit, I'd been making small decisions: the delayed visit, the convenient work commitments, the Saturday I didn't show up, that were each, individually, explainable. And collectively they formed a pattern of avoidance. A series of decisions designed to protect me from the reality that my friend was ill in a way that might not end well. The protection worked. I got to keep my week intact, mostly. And then I sat in a waiting room at 1 in the morning and understood, viscerally, what the protection had cost. I have been a different kind of friend since Petra died. I am aware that sounds like a redemption arc, and I'm cautious about that framing, because I don't think I deserve redemption from this particular failure. I was not present for my friend when she needed me. That is true, and the truth of it doesn't soften because I've become more present since. What I will say is, I no longer let my discomfort determine the depth of a conversation. When someone I love starts a sentence they don't finish, I gently follow them. When a visit feels heavy, I stay in the heaviness instead of steering toward easier ground. Not because I'm brave, I'm still uncomfortable with those moments, but because I know, now, what it costs to look away. I visit people when they call. Not Thursday, not Friday. I go. And when someone reaches for something that feels difficult to say, I reach back. That's the only thing I can do with this now. The regret doesn't leave. But it has an address. And it keeps pointing me somewhere real. There is something I want to add that I think is essential to the story, not as a coda, but as the part that actually contains the lesson. Understanding what happened is only half of it. The other half is what you do with the understanding. And for a long time, I confused having insight with having changed. They are not the same thing. You can understand a pattern completely and still enact it perfectly, because patterns live below the level of understanding, in the body and the habit and the reflex. Real change requires not just seeing the pattern but building a different response, not once, but repeatedly, until the new response starts to feel as natural as the old one did. That process is slow. It's humbling. There are weeks where I can track the insight and weeks where I slip back into the old behavior before I've noticed it happening. And the slipping back, I've learned, is not evidence of failure. It's evidence of learning. You can only see the pattern when you're outside it. When you're inside it, you're in it, and the work is to build enough awareness that the outside perspective arrives faster. What helped me most was specificity. Not I want to do better, but the concrete, exact question, what will I do differently in this specific type of situation, the next time it appears? What is the exact moment where the old behavior begins? And what is the alternative action I can take at that exact moment? Those questions, practiced, tested, refined, are what actual change is made of. Not resolution. Not insight alone. Specific, practiced, repeated alternative actions. I'm not done. I'm not fixed. I don't think that's how this works. But I'm different than I was. In specific, measurable, real ways. And the story I've just told you is part of why. The telling matters. It keeps it from becoming something I store away and don't examine. It makes it real, again, every time I say it. And real is where the change lives. I think often about the version of myself that was inside the experience, not this one, the one that can look back and see it clearly, but the one who was in the middle of it, navigating with partial information and real fear and the limited emotional resources of someone who hadn't yet learned what was happening. That version of me was doing the best she could with what she had. That's not a get-out-of-accountability-free card. But it is a necessary part of the honest accounting, because self-understanding can't be built on self-punishment alone. At some point the punishment has to give way to comprehension. And comprehension, real comprehension, requires some compassion for the person you were before you knew what you know now. I didn't have the tools I have now. I've built them since. Slowly, imperfectly, with help from therapists and honest conversations and the specific, uncomfortable practice of sitting with things I'd rather not sit with. The goal is not to arrive at a version of myself that doesn't make mistakes. That version doesn't exist. The goal is to make a different kind of mistake each time. Not the same one, wearing a new costume. A genuinely new one, smaller, or at least different in its shape, because I'm bringing more awareness to the territory than I had the last time. Progress doesn't feel the way we imagine it will when we're inside the difficult chapter. It doesn't feel like transformation. It feels like the gap between impulse and action getting slightly longer. Like the moment of recognition arriving slightly earlier. Like the voice that says wait, not yet, is this what you actually want to do here, getting just a little louder, a little more reliable, a little more present when you need it most. That voice is there. It's always been there. I just had to learn to stay quiet long enough to hear it. And that's the practice, in the end. Staying quiet enough to hear yourself. In all the noise of living, in all the urgency and the wanting and the fear and the pressure, staying quiet enough to hear what you actually know. I'm still learning. But I'm listening now.